We are live. Hello, everyone. Welcome. I am so excited to be here with you today. Welcome as people start to log in. Don't forget to share this on your personal Facebook page. We are going to cover so much important information today. You're not going to want to miss this. And for those that maybe are watching this later, make sure you continue to share this, get the word out. Information today is going to be incredibly helpful to if you know someone living with lupus or another autoimmune illness, or if you yourself live with lupus or another autoimmune illness. Thank you for joining us today for our special presentation entitled Spotlight on Weight Management and Fatigue, an educational symposium in honor of Lupus Awareness Month. It's also Fibromyalgia Awareness Month and Mental Health Awareness Month. So we're kind of covering a lot of things through this symposium today. My name is Kelly, and I am the creator and executive director of the Portland-based nonprofit, Portland, Oregon-based nonprofit, More Than Lupus. And if you're unfamiliar with More Than Lupus, we are a multi-ethnic, multi-generational, and international lupus community designed by lupus patients to connect, to grow, and inspire each other throughout the peaks and the valleys of our lupus journey. And I say our because I have lived with systemic lupus and multiple lupus overlap conditions since the age of 11. Now, we believe here that every person living with lupus, no matter their background, should be treated with equity, dignity, and taken seriously. So it's our mission here that patients feel heard and seen and valued, and we talk about the important stuff. So today's event will spotlight the unique challenges with weight management for people living with lupus and other autoimmune illnesses and lupus nephritis. We hope the information provided today can be used as a resource that hopefully propels you to have an open and honest conversation with yourself and with your doctors about any concerns or questions regarding this topic. By the way, I mentioned it earlier, please make sure you share this live chat on your Facebook page so that people can get connected to a community of support and have access to information like this and other incredible resources that we have at More Than Lupus. So before we get started with our first guest, let me give you a brief disclaimer. Please understand that the opinions shared today are purely for informational purposes and do not replace the medical advice and or opinions of your doctor or doctors. If you're experiencing lupus or lupus nephritis or lupus overlap symptoms, it is important to follow up with your doctor and seek the treatment that is best for you. Our panelists are qualified professionals. However, they are not liable for their comments since they are not acting as your personal physicians or health coach or advocate. Thank you. So it is time as a patient community that we delve deeper into this conversation. And I am thrilled to have Dr. Don Thomas, board certified rheumatologist, the man behind the Ask Dr. T posts, our most popular posts we do every Saturday, and of course, author of our favorite lupus handbook, the Lupus Encyclopedia. Our first speaker, welcome, Dr. Thomas.
Good morning, Kelly and everybody.
Good morning. We're so excited to have you. Lots of people are joining already, which is exciting. Now, before we go back and get into kind of the nitty-gritty of today's topic, Dr. T, I was wondering if we could kind of go back to the beginning and give a little Lupus 101 for those that are maybe newly diagnosed or are here to learn more and support someone in their life who is newly diagnosed. So can you talk a little bit about what is lupus and how does it affect the body?
Sure, Kelly. So people need to understand that lupus is genetic in origin. So people don't get it because of something bad that they did. They were born with the genes that gave them the disease. The more genes you inherit, the more likely it is you're going to get lupus. But the vast majority of people who get the genes that can cause lupus do not actually get the disease. It takes triggers to turn those genes on. There's a lot of genes actually. Just last year, they looked at a African American population and they identified over 180 genes that predispose to lupus. Some of them are much more likely to cause lupus than others. And for example, there can be families where those genes are identified and there can be multiple family members who have lupus. Other genes, it takes a whole bunch of them because they're just less likely to do it. And someone could be born in a family with no one who has an autoimmune disease in it. But some of the most common triggers are Epstein-Barr virus, like mononucleosis, ultraviolet light exposure. It's not uncommon for me to get a new patient with very sick new onset lupus after a Caribbean cruise, for example. Cigarette smoking is one of the biggest ones, and there's multiple other ones. These genes, by the way, are actually normal immune system genes. It's just that they can be overactive. And for example, people might have heard of the most recent FDA-approved drug called Safnello, which inhibits the activity of something called interferon. Interferon is an important immune system molecule that helps us fight off viral infections. But in some lupus patients, their interferon genes are super active or overactive. And if they get a viral infection like Epstein-Barr virus, those genes can just go crazy and just produce just way too much interferon that just never turns off and causes inflammation throughout the body. And then the immune system attacks the body itself. It can attack any organ of the body. If I line up 100 of my lupus patients, every single one of them has different problems. Most people think about the malar rash or the butterfly rash of lupus, but only 30% of people get that. It's just very easy to show a photograph. So if people don't have the butterfly rash and wonder if they might not have lupus, that's only a minority of our patients.
Wow. I think that is probably news to some people watching right now, because that's the thing that you think of first is the butterfly rash. And if you don't have it, then you don't have lupus. So that is great to dispel that myth. Okay, so Dr. T, you have seen and treated hundreds of patients in your career, probably thousands. I can imagine, due to that amount of people, people who come here and ask me this question, how many times in your career you've been asked about weight management?
All the time, every day.
Every day. Obviously, we know that there are certain factors that can affect a person's weight when living with lupus and other autoimmune illnesses. Certain medications can cause weight gain. And then there's the being in physical pain part that makes you kind of stop moving your body, and then you have more pain. And the pain can hinder someone from being active. Can you touch on that? Why is healthy weight management important to be mindful of?
There's several different reasons, Kelly. And first off, you pointed out something incredibly important. Most of our lupus patients are obese or overweight. And there's a lot of reasons for that, exactly like you just said. Steroids or prednisone is one of the biggest causes of increased fat gain. But something that it does is that it uses up muscle. It actually breaks down muscle mass to form energy, and then it makes increased fat mass. So people who have taken steroids, they end up being less muscular, more fat. In fact, someone can have a normal BMI, and this is not uncommon in lupus, and yet be medically obese because they had just too little muscle because of those steroids. Then I'll add on top of that the decreased physical activity that comes along with the fatigue and the pain, add to that increased obesity. Then the problem is that fat is inflammatory. It actually increases inflammation. And when we look at large groups of lupus patients, those who are overweight and obese tend to have the most inflammation and the most severe disease. And losing that weight is so important to help decrease inflammation. The other thing is that after the first couple of years of the diagnosis of lupus, the number one cause of death in our patients is heart attacks and strokes. And obesity is a major risk factor in those happening as well. So decreasing weight to help with disease control, and also to decrease heart attacks and strokes. That's the bottom line.
Yeah, yeah. That is so fascinating about the steroid use, and it just goes to show how much we need to have research to discover new medications so we can stop using that as the first go-to treatment. I don't think as a patient community we understand how important it is to think about the things you mentioned about cardiovascular disease, and to make sure that certain factors like blood pressure and cholesterol are managed well. You just talked a little bit about cardiovascular disease and how it can affect the body. Um, I know that we had another doctor on here recently who talked about the kidneys specifically and blood pressure. Can you just spend like a moment talking about how blood pressure can affect the kidneys and why it's so important to manage that?
Yes. So think about it. Every time your heart beats and you have arteries and the blood is going through it, and if the heart beats and the blood pressure is high, if it's too high, every time the heart beats, it can actually damage those blood vessels throughout the entire body. And that's one reason why it's a big risk factor for hardening of the arteries and damage to the arteries, and hence heart attacks and strokes. The kidneys and blood pressure have a very intimate relationship. The kidneys produce hormones that help regulate blood pressure, and when people have decreased kidney function or lupus nephritis, inflammation of the kidneys, that can cause increases in blood pressure. Then the blood pressure, that high blood pressure, like how I just illustrated with damaging the arteries, can damage the kidneys and the arteries in the kidneys, and then it becomes a vicious cycle of worse kidney function, higher blood pressure, and it's no wonder that when we look at our patients who do get heart attacks and strokes, if they have a history of lupus nephritis, that's one of the biggest risk factors. And so it's really important, especially in those patients, to hone in on exercise, weight control, blood pressure, cholesterol control, etc.
Yes, yes. Yeah, I think a lot of people forget that the kidneys not only are our filtering system, but they also produce hormones that affect the rest of the body as well. It's so important to be
Yes.
mindful of that.
And Kelly, I highly make a recommendation to everyone watching this. If you don't have a home blood pressure machine, please get one. Today we know that home blood pressure readings are more accurate than what we get in the doctor's office. So what I recommend is getting a home blood pressure machine before every single doctor's visit. For a few days before that doctor visit, do your blood pressure several times, and then give those numbers to your doctor. Every doctor you see, that's so important. And then to make sure it's an accurate machine, just take it into the office one time and compare it to what your doctor gets to make sure it's accurate. But that's one of the best things that patients can do.
That is wonderful advice. And I believe that that's covered by insurance. So you can request, most insurance will send you a blood pressure cuff. And some of us, you might be nervous at your appointment and get an off reading because of being nervous and anticipating the appointment. So it's important to take a white coat syndrome. Yes. You
Yes.
doctors are so scary. No. But so important to do it in the morning, in the afternoon, and the evening, so they can have that measurable improvement, or things that they know that they need to work on with your blood pressure. Okay, so one of the ways that we can help manage blood pressure and cholesterol and weight, BMI, is through diet. Another hot topic question for you, Dr. T. Everyone wants to know, is there a perfect lupus diet?
So there's not a perfect lupus diet, because in order to say that, we'd have to have what we call a randomized controlled trial proving that something's better than the average diet. But we have a lot of evidence that there's certainly diets that are better than others. Any diet that has enough calories that help get you down to a normal body weight. That's one of the most important things. We do believe more and more that eating an anti-inflammatory diet is beneficial for lupus, and this comes from animal model studies and some preliminary human studies. For example, there was one in California just a few years ago in rheumatoid arthritis patients who showed that patients who ate an anti-inflammatory diet, they had on average better control of their rheumatoid arthritis. Just some examples are eating foods that are high in omega-3 fatty acids, walnuts, cold water fatty fishes like salmon and tuna, for example. In my house, we buy big bags of walnuts from Amazon. We put them in the fridge, and then just once a day, just grab 6 of those, and that's enough to get your omega-3 fatty acid recommendations for the entire day. Then there's some other ones. We're finding out more and more that the microbiome inside of the gut is very important with how it interacts with the immune system. And Kelly, did you know that the largest immune system organ of the body that has the most white blood cells is actually the intestinal system? And so just think about that. The food that you eat, the bacteria in your intestines, they're constantly interacting with the immune system. And we know now that people with higher disease activity from lupus, they have abnormal microbiomes or bacteria in their immune system. I recommend that patients eat something called resistant starches every day. Resistant starches are starches that are hard to digest. They go into the colon, and then they actually increase beneficial bacteria. This comes from a really nice lupus mouse study where they took lupus mice and they had them eat a diet that was very high in resistant starches, and they showed that their lupus got better, and that the beneficial bacteria got better. Some examples, by the way, are overnight oats. Just putting some oatmeal in some milk and then eating it the next day raw. Don't eat it hot, but eat it cold. And there's a whole long list of resistant starches that can be eaten like that.
Okay, well, let's look up those resistant starches, and I'll get those out to the community so they can know what the right ones are. And God bless those lupus mice, I tell you. God bless them and all that they go through to help us.
That's where all research starts.
I know. Yeah, there's some interesting ways we get the research and the medications that we get, and some of it I don't even want to know, honestly.
And on the topic of probiotics, by the way, Kelly, we don't recommend probiotic pills. Please don't. There's actually some probiotic bacteria that have been shown to increase lupus disease activity in animal models. Some of those are in the ones you can actually buy from Amazon and such. Instead, eat foods that are probiotics, such as culture active yogurt, fermented kimchi, fermented pickles, and things like that.
Go the natural route, always. Yes. So as you mentioned earlier, that something that your patients ask you probably more than anything else is, what about exercise? What about weight management? And I know that you are on top of all the latest research when it comes to the right exercise for your patients. So what would you say are some of the types of exercise that you prefer your patients to do? And maybe some that you say, you know what, let's not go there, but let's try this to get you going with a healthy BMI and to get your blood pumping and to make sure you're making healthy habits into your daily routine.
Sure. So exercise is incredibly important, Kelly. I work over 60 hours a week. I find it very easy to crash on my couch, really tired, and try to talk myself out of exercising that day. But I have this mantra that I tell myself. I say, Don, exercise is as important to living as eating and sleeping. And just keep saying that to yourself until you get off the couch and exercise. It's an absolute necessity in life that we exercise because it has so many benefits. Just quickly, some of those benefits are for weight control. They decrease the risk of heart attacks and strokes and blood clots, the number one causes of death in lupus. Regular exercise decreases bad cholesterol called LDL and increases good cholesterol called HDL. Lupus patients, by the way, if you get your cholesterol level done and you get a high HDL level, don't let your doctor tell you that that's a good thing, because in lupus patients, a lot of our lupus patients have what we call pro-inflammatory HDL lupus is a crazy disease that actually causes heart attacks and strokes. But regular exercise has been shown to decrease that pro-inflammatory HDL in a very nice study that was done in 2010 by Dr. Bever Hahn and Dr. Daniel Wallace. Regular exercise increases muscle mass, it increases bone density, decrease broken bones from osteoporosis, increases sleep, and increases energy. But there's four main types of exercise. There's aerobic exercise. We recommend moderate, low impact aerobic exercise, 150 minutes a week. Number two, doing strengthening exercises at least twice a week. Number three, flexibility and stretching exercises before and after exercise. And then a fourth one is proprioception exercises, balance exercises, like getting a balancing board at your sitting, standing desk and doing that while you're doing desk work is really good. What's bad exercise for lupus patients is please don't exercise in the sun. Ultraviolet light will just make your lupus more active. Morning time and early evening are much, much better. And also do exercise that's safe for you. Even in, healthy people, one of the most common problems is injuries because of doing exercises improperly. Lupus patients oftentimes have arthritis and other problems. It's always a good idea to ask your doctor to see a physical therapist to evaluate your physical health, your biokinetics, how your body works with itself, and then have them design a safe exercise regimen for you.
Mm-hmm. Wow, I feel like all this information we should put into a blog. I think that people are going to want to hear all of this again and read it again and have it in front of them. Oh, this is so great, so helpful. I love how you broke that all down. Okay, so we talked about diet and we talked about exercise. So the burning question is, how is this all related to lupus fatigue? Probably the number one complaint about lupus patients is this just unending fatigue.
Sure.
Just exhausted.
So if you could you bring up my slides for me,
Sure
the
can.
first slide? So fatigue is one of the biggest problems, like you said, Kelly, and it has to be so frustrating as a lupus patient to be told how good you're doing, and yet you just feel like crap because you don't have the energy to do the things that you want to do. Us doctors need to do a much better job in talking to our patients and evaluating them. But I like to show this as just one example of how we look at fatigue as physicians. This came out just a couple of years from Dr. Laurent Arnaud in Salzburg, France. He's a fantastic lupologist, and he's the head of the Euro Lupus organization. But they took 502 of their patients who had systemic lupus and looked at fatigue, and they divided it into three different groups. And I like to first look at the group at the very bottom right there, the cluster number 3. 7% of the patients had high disease activity, along with high fatigue, as well as their lupus being very active. The importance of that group, by the way, is that when we physicians see that, then we know that we can treat their lupus to hopefully get their fatigue better, and oftentimes, and usually it does in my experience. So if I have a hydroxychloroquine is one great example of something that can be very beneficial for fatigue. I follow hydroxychloroquine drug levels to make sure that it's at a therapeutic level for that. If that doesn't work by itself, adding mycophenolate or Benlysta or Safnello on top, those are three good examples that can help that particular group. The one on the left side, or the cluster number 1, that group, they had a moderate amount of fatigue. They had low levels of anxiety and depression, and they had low disease activity from their lupus. And then cluster number 2 on the top right, that's the hardest to treat group. They had very high fatigue, they had very high levels of depression, very high levels of anxiety. The reason that the doctors looked at depression and anxiety in this is because those two things increase fatigue themselves and are not going to get better by treating the lupus inflammation. There's only one drug that's ever been shown to be helpful in every single fatigue study in lupus, and that drug is actually exercise. And so as physicians, we recommend that all of these patients exercise regularly to help out with their fatigue. And I'll show you in just a little bit some great evidence that shows how that works. But I'd like to point out something interesting, Kelly. One criticism I have about this study is that they looked at something called the SLEDAI. The SLEDAI is the Systemic Lupus Erythematosus Disease Activity Index. It's something we can measure in research. If patients have arthritis from their lupus, we give it 4 points. If they have pericarditis, we give it 2 points. And the higher the score, the more disease activity that they have. But a big problem with this is that you can have a patient with a SLEDAI of low disease activity or quote unquote remission, but still have horrible fatigue because of their lupus. And just an example, this measurement does not look at lupus inflammatory lung disease or lupus hepatitis. So you can have a lupus patient with those two things who has horrible fatigue, yet in the research program for this study, they would be told that they were in remission with that and not in the cluster number 3 where they should actually be. So we have a lot to do as far as making research better in our lupus patients, and they are working hard at it. But I want patients to understand that this doesn't really give a realistic picture of disease activity and fatigue. So slide number 2, please. So every single exercise study with energy problems and fatigue show that exercise helps lupus patients and autoimmune disease patients. Rheumatoid arthritis, like we have someone with rheumatoid arthritis who's going to talk after me. But Sjogren's disease is a disease that's very closely related to lupus. The immunology is incredibly similar. So I'd like to just show this particular study real quick. There is a randomized controlled trial, one of the best types of studies you can have for autoimmune diseases. And they took sedentary middle-aged women with Sjogren's disease. So these are women who just don't exercise. Then the next slide, please. And so 22 of the patients, they told them not to exercise whatsoever, just do whatever they want to do. And then the other 23, next slide, they had them do supervised treadmill for 4 months, 3 days a week. And they really made them exercise hard during the exercise. Next slide. At the end of 4 months, Kelly, they showed that, number one, their disease did not flare up. And that's really important for patients to understand. Lupus does not flare up, or Sjogren's doesn't flare up just simply by exercising. But those patients who exercise, they had significantly increased energy and less fatigue at the end of the study. And then they did something called a patient-reported outcome measurement, which we're doing more and more in research. They asked them, how are you actually doing compared to before the start of the study? Next slide. Oh, and so they had significant improvements in quality of life, less depression. Next slide. And then 62, the non-exercisers, 62% of them felt like they were doing significantly better. But how about the exercisers? Next slide.
Oop.
And again.
That was the last slide that was here.
Oh, well, anyways, there's supposed to be a bar.
The suspense is killing me.
There's supposed to be a bar that says 95%.
Oh my gosh.
95.
Wow.
These were women who just don't exercise, horribly fatigued when they started the study. But at the end of the study, 95% were doing markedly better. And this is just one example of many. But another study I'd like to just point out, and this is one of the reasons you asked me to talk today, is that they did a fascinating study at the National Institutes of Health last year, and they asked some of my patients to participate. But they took 16 women with systemic lupus, and they had low disease activity to moderate disease activity. And then they had them do the treadmill, where they really exercised them hard. They had them exercise to 70% to 80% of their target heart rate. And just to give an example, it's considered 50% to 70% is moderate aerobic exercise. That's where we usually want our patients to go for. But they had them at 70 to 80%. That's really vigorous exercise. And then they did a lot of measurements, like how much oxygen they took up, and then how much more activity they could do at the end of the study compared to the beginning of the study. And the results were fascinating, Kelly. What they showed is, number one, their exercise endurance improved a lot. All of them had significant improvements in their energy levels and fatigue. But then they looked at something fascinating called mitochondrial function. They did some measurements where they actually could see how well the mitochondria work. The mitochondria, by the way, is an organelle in all the cells of our body, and it's considered the powerhouse of the cell. The way that cells make energy is inside of the mitochondria. And we have known for years that patients with lupus have abnormal mitochondria that just don't work as well as in people as the normal population. What the NIH doctors showed is that at the end of the study, there was significant improvements in mitochondrial function. So, when people ask, why do I have to exercise when I feel so crappy and I'm sick and I have this disease called lupus? This shows you a scientific reason on how it works. It actually improves the powerhouse of the cell called the mitochondria. That's not the only reason, by the way. It does help out with sleep, decrease depression, and other things. But I think that this study was fascinating.
That is so fascinating. And you sent that to me, so I will share that with everyone here after this is stopped being live. I'll add it to the comments so you can view this study later. I think that debunks one of the biggest fears with lupus patients and other autoimmune patients is, am I going to make my lupus worse? Am I going to feel worse if I incorporate exercise into my daily routine? Or if I do something strenuous, am I going to be getting worse? And that stops a lot of people. That fear is like, I don't want to feel any worse. But it's the opposite. You have to get over that fear in order to get moving, because if you don't move it, you'll lose it. And that's something I know from my own personal experience. I actually, and I know we've talked about this before, my form of exercise that I incorporate into my life is dancing. And moving my body to dance not only helps with circulation and range of motion and all of that, but it also helps my cognitive brain fog, is learning the routines, repeating them, and memorizing different movements. So I'm a big component of that.
Kelly, I have a question. Did you figure that out on your own, or did you do dancing on purpose because of a recommendation from a doctor or someone?
I figured it out on my own. I have always had a love of dance. Before I got sick as a child, because I got Epstein-Barr virus when I was 11, and that's what triggered my lupus. I was in dance class several nights a week, and I loved it so much, and then I couldn't move. And I thought, I'm not giving this up. I have to find a way to incorporate it back into my life again. And then I started doing it little by little. And I realized the more I did it, the more I'm like, hey, I can't remember my name some days, and now I can remember these routines. Like, this is good. And so I started to do it. And then I saw the research. I'm like, yes, it is beneficial.
Yeah, the memory experts, Kelly, recommend dance as the number one exercise, and a couple of reasons. Not only are you exercising and getting the benefits of exercise, but you're forcing your brain to have new memory connections and neurological connections that actually improve memory. So that's just fascinating that you learned that on your own, and it is one of the top recommendations for memory as well as energy.
Oh, gotta love it. I gotta love it. Well, thank you, Dr. T, so much for sharing your insights today. I appreciate you coming on. This was so informative. And did I hear you say that the person that did the first slide was a lupologist?
Yep, Dr. Arnaud at Strasbourg, in Strasbourg, France.
Well, there you go. I learned something new. That's a thing.
Oh, yeah. Dr. Michelle Petrie is a lupologist. Yeah, Dr. Dan Wallace, anyone who specializes in lupus.
Okay, so they're not just a rheumatologist, they are a lupologist. That's great. I love it. I love it. Can you tell everyone before you head out, because I know you had a very busy week and you're everywhere all the time. I want to be respectful of your time. Can you tell everyone where they can find you and how they can connect with you, and also maybe talk about what's coming up soon here?
Sure. So I'm really excited that the new second edition of the Lupus Encyclopedia is now available on Amazon. It won't get into your hands until September the 5th, when they'll actually have it printed out and everything. But I'm really excited because there's lupus experts from all over the world that did each chapter. So it's even going to be a much better book even than the previous one, and much more up to date. So we're really excited. I do have a blog called lupusencyclopedia.com where I do put on blog articles about the latest in research. For example, this mitochondria energy study. I also have the anti-inflammatory diet on there, helpful tips on how to take hydroxychloroquine. For example, if you get side effects, what should you do? And so I encourage people to go to lupusencyclopedia.com, join my email list, and then you can see my new blog posts as they come up.
Yes, I'm constantly following all your latest blog releases and posting them everywhere because they're so informative. Well, thank you again for your time today, and so happy to have you. And always thank you for the support that you provide to the patient community, Dr. T.
Keep
Have
up
a
the
great
great
rest
work.
of the weekend.
You keep
Thank
up the
you.
great work, Kelly. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Okay, guys, that was so great. So all of this information will be available to you. We're going to be posting some additional links and some resources from the conversation with Dr. T. And also, like I said, I feel that there's a blog coming up, but we're just going to take all this stuff and put it into a really juicy, condensed blog for you because this is just too good not to. Next, we have, oh, this is so exciting. We have a special guest who I recently connected with on social media. And I was so impressed with her content and her enthusiasm that I had to bring her on today. And she was so gracious to kind of step up and be like, sure, I'll do this. Let me tell you a little bit about her. Ashley Nicole is the founder. She's a master trainer and an autoimmune health coach to RA Warrior Fitness. And she's NFPT certified, specializing in personal training, fitness and nutrition, endurance and strength training. And she's overcome many obstacles to maintain and improve her own personal lifestyle while managing rheumatoid arthritis. So her platform is called RA Warrior Fitness and was founded back in 2020 with a mission to empower autoimmune women to improve their quality of life through faith, through food and fitness, while eliminating all of that negative self-talk that can come when you live with a chronic illness. So RA Warrior Fitness has served hundreds of women since the date it began, and I'm so thrilled to welcome Ashley. Let me join you, bring you on here. Hello there.
Hi, Kelly. How are you?
I'm doing so well. I'm so
Good.
grateful that you just said yes.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, it was an honor for you to ask me. And, I never miss an opportunity to share my story and to help empower and inspire other women that I know who have been through what I've been through, who are going through it. And so I never miss an opportunity. So thank you for inviting me.
Oh, it's absolutely my pleasure. I've been following you and watching your journey and seeing your posts. I'm just so impressed with the work that you do. So I really want to introduce you to the More Than Lupus community because many of us have RA overlap and multiple overlap autoimmune illnesses. So do you mind just telling everyone about yourself?
Yes.
And when did you know something was not okay? Something was not right with your joints?
Yes, yes. So I was actually officially diagnosed with rheumatoid arthritis back in 2010. However, I started experiencing symptoms when I was in college. So I knew that something wasn't right when I started having joint pain and stiffness in my hands. And I was 21 years old at the time working in retail. And so I thought that my hands were just hurting from the overuse of folding the clothes, hanging the clothes, cleaning out the fitting rooms. And I had also played the saxophone for years. I was like, well, maybe that's catching up with me. But, I just had no idea that it was RA until I woke up in my dorm room one day and literally the way my hands were feeling, I felt it in my whole entire body. So I had a full body flare when I woke up and tried to get up to, just to get out of bed was very difficult. And then I went on to try to brush my teeth, comb my hair, shower, clothe myself. While doing those tasks, I just thought it would go away, but it wouldn't go away. And I'm like, what's happening? So I
Mhm.
finally called my mom. I was like, "Hey, mom, something isn't right. I need to go to the doctor." She was like, "Okay, let's go to urgent care." So went to urgent care, and urgent care, of course, didn't run any test or anything. They just said, "Take some Tylenol or leave, and it'll be fine. You'll be okay." And so honestly, that's what I did, Kelly, for 6 years. For 6 years, I was just kind of putting a Band-Aid on it with Tylenol, Aleve, just to kind of get rid of the pain, because the full body flare didn't last but maybe about a couple of days. And then it just ended up just being my hands and wrists. And so, anyway, fast forward to 6 years later, in that span of time, I had gained a ton of weight. I had gained like maybe 65 pounds. And
Mhm.
so I didn't realize at the time that, lack of exercise was not
Mhm.
helping me. And also the foods that I was eating was not helping me. I was literally feeding my disease with food and alcohol, like
Mhm.
happy hour twice a week. I loved those big sugary margaritas. Again,
Mhm.
not being really mindful and aware of the sugar and how the contents of that margarita was causing my inflammation and my flares. And so finally, when I finally got diagnosed in 2010, I was like, okay, I need to definitely start to take better care of myself.
Mhm.
And so I started to lose the weight, started to educate myself on healthier foods and everything. Because even my doctor at the time didn't really say change your diet, exercise. She just, trying to medicate me. And so anyway, so I just kind of figured that out on my own. And I fell in love with the way my body was feeling, the way it was changing.
Mhm.
And so I decided to get certified in 2018. And so, yeah, and the rest from there is pretty much history. Now, I will say that I am a lupus warrior as well, and it was actually medically induced. While I was working with my rheumatologist to try to find a medication that worked for me, I had started this infusion. And it worked very well for my RA. I was like, finally, I got something that's going to work, because I had tried so many things, and she was monitoring my blood work and everything. And then all of a sudden, like, lupus numbers were just up there. She was like, we got to stop this medication. Like, and she kept asking me, do you have these symptoms? Do you have these symptoms? I'm like, no. So literally, I highly test positive for lupus, but I don't have the symptoms. And so Dr. T mentioned the hydrochloroquine. So that's what I take now, in addition to my Orencia, which is my weekly injection to kind of help, I guess, continue to suppress that,
Mhm.
you know.
Mhm.
So yeah, so we have to constantly keep an eye on that as well. Making sure that it doesn't flare up. But I will say that nutrition and exercise has certainly been a game changer for me. And that's why I decided to become a coach, to essentially become who I needed when I was diagnosed, to help other
Mhm.
women to
Mhm.
improve their
Mhm.
quality of life through faith, food, and fitness.
Wow.
Mm.
I feel like I'm just constantly nodding in agreement with everything you're saying.
Yes, yes.
I love what you said. You said something that I'm like, oh my gosh, mental note, don't forget that. You
Hmm.
said, I fell in love with my body.
Yeah.
And that statement just gives me chills,
Yes.
because with these chronic diseases, when we're given a chronic disease and this happens and our life is changed, and we tend to disconnect with that
Hmm.
love of who
Right.
we are.
Exactly.
We feel like we've been betrayed by our bodies, and it's a
Hmm.
constant thing that we're fighting against,
Yes.
like a bad relationship. And when
Yes.
you said, I fell in love with my body, guys,
Hmm.
and everyone who's watching this right now, she still has RA. She
Yeah.
still has
Very
lupus.
much so.
She's
Hmm.
still taking the medications, but she's in love with her body and she respects her body. And I love that so much, Ashley.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, it's definitely a mindset thing. And I'm sure you know this. Like, we just have to learn how to shift our mindset to kind of look at things a little differently, knowing that, like you said, sometimes our body will betray us. But, when we can celebrate what our bodies can do, whether through exercise or just daily activities, like, it truly is a blessing, and you just kind of have to shift that mindset and really try to look at, you know, the good and the positive and what your lupus or RA
Mhm.
has taught you, because I feel like my autoimmune conditions have taught me so much. And you have to just kind of find that silver lining, you know, and to be able to move on.
Yes,
Hmm.
yes, I love that.
Yes.
And how did you, okay, so you discovered that through moving and getting your body and respecting your body and loving your body, incorporating movement and exercise
Mhm.
into your daily life was starting to have an impact. So, how has it benefited you? What have you seen? How have you felt? And what can you share with our group here today?
I will say that I say this all the time. Movement is medicine.
Mhm.
Motion is lotion. It truly is. So
I
everything
love it.
that Dr. T said, all the scientific research and everything, it's all true. I am a living witness and testimony of what exercise and taking care and loving your body can do. And so even though now I'm at a stage in my life where I'm actually bodybuilding, I told you that in a side conversation, but I tell people all the time, I didn't wake up like this. Okay. Like at my heaviest on my 5'4" frame, I was 220 pounds. I was very obese for, you know, my body type and everything. Like I said, I was feeding my disease with food, not
Mm.
getting active. And so once I discovered how to eat better, I started to feel better. And then
Mm.
I wanted to move. And so I started with jazzercise. You mentioned that your love for dance
Yes, yes.
is there. And yeah, so I was like, I like to dance. So let me just start there, you know. And literally, I started with jazzercise. And then I gradually was like, okay, well, let me join a gym and kind of see what that's like. And so I did that. And then I would go to these different fitness classes. Like I joined Camp Gladiator for a while, F45, all these different classes. And I just realized I started to feel just so much better, to the point where when I didn't exercise, like if I went more than 2 or 3 days not exercising, like I could feel it. It's like my
Mm.
joints would
Mhm.
start to
Mhm.
get stiff again. And I'm like, I have to do this for the rest of my life. And that's okay, you know? But don't get me wrong, your body does need rest, because I will say this too. If you push yourself too hard, your body will let you know. So it is
Mhm.
important to listen to your body and know when you indeed do truly need to rest.
Mhm.
But for me, exercise has certainly changed my life. It's something that I will forever be grateful that I can do. Every morning when I wake up, I thank God that I can get up and get out of bed and just move my limbs and stretch,
Mm.
and let alone be able to dress myself, go to the gym, lift weights, do, you know, those things. Of course, some things have to be
Mhm.
modified, but I'm just grateful to be able to do it, because that's what our bodies were meant to do. Our bodies were meant to move. And
Yeah.
so, you know, even those who have arthritis, don't let that hinder you. Don't let that stop you from moving. Our bodies were meant to move. You just have to find a low impact or exercise that works for you. Because I will say there is no one size fit all nutrition or workout plan. Everybody is truly different. And so I keep that in mind as well with my clients, because each of my clients, they have something different. You know, one might have shoulder pain, one might have wrist issues, one might have knees, and so knee issues. So, you know, just being mindful and making sure that you're exercising safely. But whatever you do, keep moving and don't stop.
Oh,
Don't
love
stop.
it. Okay, you said something earlier that I thought was really powerful too. I'm trying. See, I'm making all these mental notes of the things.
Yes.
I love it. You said I wanted to do something that I wish someone had done for me when
Mm-hmm.
I was first diagnosed.
Yes. Yes.
So, you took your experience and then you turned it into awareness and then action. So,
Mm-hmm.
um, you formed this platform, um, RA,
All right, Warrior
RA
Fitness.
Warrior Fitness.
Uh-huh.
So, I want to talk a little bit about that, but also what is one piece of advice that you would give someone newly diagnosed, like when you were like,
Mm-hmm.
I don't know where to start or where to begin, who
Yeah.
has systemic lupus or rheumatoid arthritis and thinks that they'll never be able to be active again?
Mm-hmm. Well, the first thing I would say is, first of all, know that it's okay to grieve your previous life.
Yeah.
Give yourself that grace and know that it's okay to grieve who you used to be. So once you take that time to grieve, the person that you used to be, then comes acceptance. Then you have to accept the autoimmune condition. You have to accept where you are now, but not only just accept it, but you have to figure out how to move forward from there and create a new normal, so to speak. And like I said, some things will have to be modified as far as, your diet and nutrition, some of your daily activities. You might have to use some, assistive devices that can help you around in the kitchen and different things. And also, modifying your exercises. Just know that it's okay to shift and to modify. Things may not look like they did a few years prior before you were diagnosed, but it doesn't stop you from reaching your goals and still being active. Because I went from pretty much when I was first, starting having issues, lifting a cup and actually being able to hold on to it was difficult. And now I can lift weights. Like I squatted the other day. I think yesterday I squatted like 165 pounds. That might not be a lot to, some power lifters, but for this RA warrior, that was a huge deal for me. And so you just have to give yourself grace, first of all. Know that it's okay to grieve. Accept where you accept your condition, but also figure out how to move forward. You can't stay in that low place, and know that it's okay to not be okay. Because I know that with chronic conditions comes, anxiety and depression, but feel that, but you can't stay there. You can't stay there. That's why it's so important to exercise your mindset too. So faith, food, and fitness, those are my 3 pillars. Faith is number 1, because my faith is honestly what got me through. My faith in God and my faith in myself, in believing that I could actually have a better quality of life. So make sure that you are exercising your faith, just like you're exercising your body every day. How do you do that? You can do that through scripture, through prayer, through meditation, through journaling, through practicing gratitude, and just really just celebrating what your body can do, and just celebrating that things are as well as they are. And so that would be my piece of advice. I know you said one thing, but you kind of have to go in phases with this. You know what I mean? And there's
love it all.
Waves.
Bring it all. Yes.
Like there's waves of grief. There's also waves of going through this journey that we go through, like especially not knowing what we're going to get from one day to the next. With autoimmune, it just one day you could be completely fine. The next day you can't get off the couch because you're so exhausted and in pain, And so that's why I say it's so important to, have that strong sense of faith and exercise your mindset. And then your body will naturally follow. It really will.
I love too what you said. When something comes up and maybe you have a setback is not a stop sign, it's a shift. I love how you said it's a shift.
Yes.
And that's such a huge mental image right there. I think it's a really powerful way to continue forward. We conquer by continuing. It's not a stop sign, it's a shift. Does your shift look like? Could it be modifying your current exercise routine? Could it be maybe going from walking on the treadmill to going into a heated pool? Could it be just doing one thing or incorporating one healthy habit? Could it be cutting out sugar? I know that's something that I...
Yes.
And
all the inflammatory stuff. Yes.
All of that. But, oh golly, so many pearls of wisdom here. Okay, so how can people get connected to you? And by the way, do you offer Zoom? Because I think a lot of people are going to see you here and want to sign up for all the things that you offer.
Yes, absolutely.
Tell us a little bit about RA Fitness Warrior and the services you provide.
Absolutely. Yeah. So I actually have a program now that I've been doing, actually, I started off doing it last year. It's like a 5-day kind of mini course, Room to Rise. Room is actually spelled RHEUM,
Oh,
like
I love that.
Room to Rise.
I
And
love
so,
the
yes.
play on words. Oh my goodness.
Yes. And so I've turned that into a 6-week challenge. And so I have the Room to Rise challenge that I've pretty much been launching just about every month this year, where I have been inviting warriors in to go through an 8-week challenge with me where we focus on faith, food, and fitness. And if you book a discovery call with me, you'll get a free health assessment. So we'll look at that first, kind of see where you are, see if we are a good fit to work together. And if you decide to join the program, you'll be able to have access to my RA Warrior Fitness app that actually has joint-friendly exercises in it. And then I also do 2 live workouts per week on Tuesdays and Thursdays. So my clients, they always look forward to that. And yeah, and it's just an amazing community of support. So I do have a Facebook community, but my clients in the app, you know, we have a chat over there as well, and we just continue to motivate one another. I do bi-weekly group coaching calls where we celebrate our wins. You know, we might even talk about our challenges, and then I'll coach on a topic on either faith, food, or fitness. And it's something that you can take away and apply to your daily life. And so, yeah, so you can find me on Instagram at Ashnick, ASHNIC_RA Warrior Fitness. I'm also on Facebook as RA Warrior Fitness LLC. My website is rawarriorfitness.com. So there are many ways that you can certainly get in touch with me. Would love to have a free discovery call. And like I said, I'll do the health assessment for free. And then we'll look to see if we will be a good fit to work together.
Did you hear that, everyone? She is offering a free discovery call so you can talk about your fitness goals and some of maybe your challenges, your concerns, and she can answer all of your questions. I would not miss that opportunity because she has a wealth of information here. That is so exciting. Well, do you want to say hi to some people? We have just a couple minutes here.
Yes, absolutely.
I'm so sorry. This has been such a engaging conversation that I have not said hi to all the people that have enjoyed.
Do we have a lot of people in here? That's great. I know I shared it with my network too. So
we've got dozens of people here.
Awesome.
From all over the US joining today. It's taking me a while just to scroll all the way to the top here. There you go. Here's Kathy. Oh, yes.
Kelly, is today your birthday?
It is my birthday.
Really? Happy birthday.
Thank you.
Oh my gosh. Happy birthday. I hope you're doing something fun today. Well, this was fun, but I hope you're really, you're going to celebrate later today.
Yes, my mom is here and we're from Southern California. We're going to go to the movies and then we're going to go to a nice dinner. So yes, I'm really looking forward to it. And the sun is shining today, which is so nice and Portland.
Oh, yes.
You don't get that all the time in May. So
right.
Okay, this is cool. We've got Melissa.
Hi,
from
Melissa.
Support Fibro. She runs an organization as well called Support Fibro. And I work with her all the time. She also is a functional health coach, certified functional health coach as well. So very excited about that.
I think she and I are connected on Facebook as well. Hey, Melissa.
Oh, Edwina's here. Edwina, remind us where you're joining from. Oh, you're so sweet. Yes, very exciting. Oh, okay. So Lynn's wondering about a bad accident being a trigger for lupus. Ooh,
I have a friend. I have a very close friend of mine. Her name is Katina Morrison. She was in a bad car accident, I think in 2012, and it brought out rheumatoid arthritis. It brought out, she has multiple, rheumatoid arthritis. I know she has endometriosis and fibromyalgia. But it definitely brought out the RA symptoms for sure. And she had some symptoms prior to that car accident, but that car accident definitely just woke everything up.
Yes. And Camilla is joining us and she says, yes, stress can be a huge factor in this.
Stress is the devil. Yeah.
We know. Oh, we have so many. Oh, Camilla's joining us.
Awesome.
Well, Guten Morgen. I'm not sure what time it is right there, so it might be evening.
Yeah, she said good afternoon.
Oh my goodness. And then we have
Melissa's
California
in Cali.
Oh, we've got Miss Anita Love joining us. She is up on the board for More Than Lupus.
Hi, Miss Anita.
Oh, Leanne's here. Oh,
Yeah.
so many people joining. Hi, Faye.
Hi, Faith.
Oh, I have a home blood pressure. This is the blood pressure conversation, which is so important.
Mm-hmm.
Mine is linked to the doctor's office so they can see the difference and usually go off my reading. Oh, that is so smart.
Yeah, I'm really glad that Dr. T said that, because I actually just recently bought one for home, I guess about a month or so ago, because I went to my 6-month checkup to my rheumatologist, and apparently my blood pressure was like low, like dangerously low, to the point where they had to take it 4 times, and they were constantly asking me if I was okay. And then they finally were like, "Are you an athlete?" And I was like, "Yeah, I am." And they were like, "That's still kind of low for an athlete, you know?" And so I bought one for home, and it's still lower than I feel like it should be, but I'm keeping an eye on it for sure.
Yeah. That is interesting. Yeah.
Lupus.
Wow. Wow. Oh my goodness. Yeah. So many people commenting about their weight management journey and gaining weight with medications and how frustrating that can be.
Yes, that is frustrating.
We've got Naomi from Washington, D.C. joining us.
Hey, Naomi.
Camilla, Faith, Nancy, 65, had lupus for 45 years.
Wow.
Oh my goodness.
You are a warrior. 45 years. That's amazing.
Oh, people are talking about the resistant starch food. I thought that was interesting what he said about resistant starch.
Yes. I'm actually going to look at that myself to see what all is on that list.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. So I really feel like we should put together a blog and just have all this information, because
Dr. T, he dropped some gems. Like, it was a few things he said. I was like, wow.
He is a gem dropper for sure.
Okay, first of all, I never heard the term lupologist. So I'm like,
okay. I was like, wait, say what now? That's a thing? A lupologist?
Oh my gosh, that was such a great conversation.
Oh, Miss Anita is talking about her water aerobics. She loves her water aerobics, and it is so good.
Therapy. Yeah.
Yes. Going to a physical therapist, work on core strengthening. Fantastic advice, Leanne. Yes. Oh yeah, she said her daughter dances too. Good. Oh, that's so fun. Jill is here. Jill is is on the East Coast, also in the medical community.
Awesome. Jill.
What was his name? I live close to him. I don't know what that's in reference to, but if you want to send us a private message, maybe we can answer that question. Oh, the French doctor. Oh, I see. Dr. Thomas, I think, posted something below. Hopefully you found that information. Oh, Sylvie's here. Thank you for the birthday wishes. Any kind of movement is therapy, and I think it's very, very good for people with lupus, but also with autoimmune disorders in general.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I agree. Movement is medicine. Motion is lotion. I keep telling y'all.
I love that so much. I typed it up real quick and I put it in the comments. I'm like, oh, I'm going to forget that. I put it in the comments. It's so great. Yeah. Oh, Dr. T's here, and he says, thanks for having me today. More Than Lupus, and everyone who is taking part of your day today to learn more about this important topic. Have a happy Memorial Day weekend, Dr. Thomas.
Thank you, Dr. T.
What a nice guy. Oh my goodness. Yes. Awesome. Oh yeah, Shirley ordered the book. That's so fantastic. And oh, cool. Yes. KT client says, you said that is okay to mourn the loss of your previous body and health. Needed to hear that. Needed to hear that. Wow.
Yeah, it truly is okay. I mean, that's just human nature, you know? So you have to give yourself some grace there. You know, it's okay to grieve your former self, but you can't stay there. You gotta.
So I'm going to put all of your information in the chat box here, guys. And for those that maybe want to share this with someone who does not have Facebook, it will be downloaded to YouTube, and you can share the link, and I'll do that in the next couple of days to make sure everyone can have access to this free educational symposium with so much great information. And it's 11:06 now, so I want to be respectful of your time, Ashley. I know you got things to go, places to be.
Well, thank you so much for having me, Kelly. This was really fun, a much needed conversation. And, I just love things like this. Like I said, any opportunity to educate our community, because when I was diagnosed, there was nothing like this. No one was talking about it. And so I think it's so important for people like us to turn our pain into purpose and power, to really and truly empower and import into other people who are going through it, and think that they're alone. You're not alone. You are not alone. So thank you, Kelly. Thank you for doing this.
Thank you so much, Ashley. And now that you've done one event, you are in the family. So I'm sorry, you're going to have to come back again. And you're going to have to be a part of all that we do here now, because it's just so great to have you. And I also want to just say a huge thank you to our esteemed speaker, doctor, and friend to the lupus community, Dr. Don Thomas. And Ashley Nicole, thank you again. And of course, thank you to everyone that's watching and has shared this for joining today. I just want to close with this, that no matter where you are in your weight management, remember that your value is not in a number on a scale. And as Ashley said before, fall in love with yourself right now. Talk to yourself like you would talk to someone you love. Commit to your body in positive ways. Make space for grief and make space for self-care that you enjoy, and surround yourself too with friends and family who support and respect and encourage you along your journey as well.
Yes.
So, one thing I've learned from what you've said today, Ashley, is rock what you've got today, right now.
Exactly.
And get moving.
Yes, in motion, absolutely.
Yes. As always, it's been a pleasure, and check out morethanlupus.com for more information and resources like this. Thank you guys, and have a great Memorial Day weekend.
All right. Happy weekend. Bye-bye. And happy birthday.
Thank you. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Bye-bye for now.
Bye.